Welcome back, everybody. This is DadOTron99, continuing on with our Save the World guide for beginners. This is episode 4, where we're going to cover the first two mission types that you're going to do in Save the World, which is a Fight the Storm mission and Ride the Lightning. So, we're going to cover both those missions in the video today. We're going to talk a little bit about how you go through those, what are the key pieces of what the point of the mission is, and some general strategies early on as to how you should approach them, the timing that goes into them, a couple things that you can go through. So I pre-recorded these videos ahead of time. This is still made on my main account, which is right now I think I'm around like level 56 on this account. I do have my new account created. Save the World went free to play today, April 16th, when I'm recording this at least. So I'm going to be doing some new videos here in the next little bit using that brand new account. So it's just going to be a nice fresh account for us to use. But this one was recorded with my pre-existing account. So if you see some weapons and schematics in there of some higher rarities, that's why. As you'll see, though, as I got into the missions, I tried to switch to using either common or uncommon weapons to just sort of represent a normal starting point that we're going to be on when I switch to that new account. So let's take a look at these and start to make our way through. And we'll just take a look at this mission as we get started. So we're here in the map, we're in Stonewood, and we're going to that first level 1 mission that you can see there. And I'm using the hero, the soldier hero, Rescue Trooper Ramirez, which is the first hero that you have access to when you leave the tutorial. And so we're just going to jump in to this Fight the Storm mission. Now, the point of Fight the Storm, you can see here, right? You have to find the target. You have to find the Atlas, which is a device that you call down. Effectively, that device has to charge up, and then it, essentially shoots out another aspect of the shield, right? And so you have to defend it while it's charging, right? So defend it while the laser charges, and then it can fire up information up into the storm, and that's sort of the point of that particular mission. So we'll sort of show here as I go through. And there's some lines here from Ray based on some of the messages I'm on. But the approach here is that looking at your map in sort of the top right, you want to sort of figure out where it dropped you on the map, as we can see here. And I always do a bit of a circle around the outside edge of the map. It's the best way to sort of open the map, find all of the different things. As we'll see there, right, we see those different weapons, or those different birds of rarity that are glowing. Those will always drop different weapons. And in the current version of Save the World, there's now an aspect of found weapons or traps. At the end of the mission, you can change one of those into a schematic, which is going to greatly enhance your ability as a new player to get weapons that you're going to be able to craft on an ongoing basis. So the approach here is finding the blue glow. The blue glow is needed to often activate the mission interfaces when you find them. But the other aspect here is, as you can see, I'm always mining, right? So early game, and through all the games in general, but especially for the first couple missions, you just want to be mining a bit of everything as you go, right? So you're going around sort of the edge of the map. You're trying to find where the Atlas location is. You're just mining a bit of everything, and mostly, what you're looking for, especially if you get into some things around crafting, especially traps or weapons and ammunition, is going after rock and metal. You'll always find that you typically have a lot of wood, even though in early game you'll have to collect some. But getting some of the minerals, like rough minerals and powders and things like that, from stone and rocks, ends up being really crucial. Obviously, there's a lot of chests, right? So again, the approach here is that you're going through these survivor camps, you're searching all these things to get, bacon, nuts and bolts, which you need to craft ammunition going forward. And I'll fast forward this a little bit, just so that we can sort of continue sort of going through and taking a look. But that's essentially what I'm doing here. And this part here is really just going through and looking for those different items, right? If you're finding healing items, you're moving those up. Right? You're moving those things in to your slot so you can do some healing. And so we're just sort of circling our way around the map, searching for things, looking for blue glow. And the other reason why you want to get blue glow is that there are always these aspects on the map, and I'll see when we find one, right, looking for chests, unlocking things. And you'll see these different beacons that are always on the map that give you boosts, right? They'll give you a shield boost, they'll give you a speed boost, health boost. There's one for boosting your builds and your pickaxe damage. So you want to sort of find those as you go around, and sort of do some map perspective, right? So you're getting husks, you're going through those different pieces, you're crafting. That's sort of the early part of this part of the game, right? So we'll just keep fast forwarding through this because we'll now here's an important part here too, right? We've found these bunkers. If you can find these are lots of good opportunities. There's lots of resources. There's lots of things to search down here, and there'll be questline items in the future where hey, you have to go find so many of these and sort of search them through. Continue going through that. So, that's early game. Of these missions is just as you're looking for where the Atlas location is, you're looking for survivors. You're searching for different pieces. You're farming for materials. And it's just sort of rinse repeatable. You sort of go through on all these missions as you go through them. Finding safes, looking for ammo. Right, those ammo packs are particularly important early on in the game, just because it just becomes ammunition is at a premium. As we talked about before, the strategy in these early games is trying to minimize the use of your ranged weapons as much as possible. Right, because burning through ammo is really easy with some of the different weapons that you have. So finding a decent melee weapon and using your character's abilities, right? In this case, it's a soldier, right? Actually, I think I'm actually on as base Kyle on this one, right? He's a constructor, so he's got a weapon where he drops it on the ground. I'm just using it here, right? Puts those little exploding mines on there. He's got a charge attack with his shield, and you can also put the rosy turret down, which you can man. And shoot enemies with that. So, this is sort of what we're doing, right? And you're just going through, grabbing the blue glow where you find it, and making your way around that aspect of the map, trying to find that Atlas location. Okay? And in the early game, right, you are, eliminating husks as you find them. You're trying to, move expediently, right? You don't want to spend too much time. Because as you can see, there is actually, do I see it from this perspective? In the top left, you can see there, speed run, 2 days left. So it doesn't have a specific timer on a fight the storm mission, but it does have a certain number of days, right? And so you are trying to, keep moving, things like this. If it does get down, there is a part where they will sort of extract you as it gets too close, because the idea here is that the storm is closing in too much, and if you haven't activated the Atlas within a certain period of time, right, it gets too dangerous for you to stay there, and they essentially pull you out of the mission, in which case you would fail the mission from that perspective. So, now we found the Atlas, and pieces here that you're going to clear this around, because I'm going to show a basic build. There are a lot of different, variations of how you can build a base around these, objectives. I'm going to show you one of the easier ones to use, and probably, it looks a little weird at first because of what you can build around it, but it's quite effective for these early missions and serves you well into later missions based on the type of build. But you have to clear the area out here because, as you'll see, we're building some different pieces out. Because once we call this Atlas down, then we're going to see, once we do that, we're going to see which direction the husks are going to spawn in from, right? So if we take a look in the compass bar up in the top right there, you can see that white area. So that's actually indicating where the spawn points for the husks are. And if you look in the distance there, you can sort of see the purple spawns there. Now, what I'm doing from this perspective is I'm using base Kyle. He's one of the best, heroes in the game. He's definitely one of the best constructors in the game, right? And so that piece that I just put down on the top, right, just to sort of pause this for a moment, right, is that protects, it gives extra strength to your builds. So it does two things. It adds a shield or an armor component to all of your builds and any of the traps that are attached to them. And it also gives them extra health. So it gives like something like 60 armor, and then his commander perk is that he adds an 85% amount of health to any build, right? So their hit points are much sturdier, plus they have armor. So in early games, this is really important, because the main thing is you're just trying to keep the Husks from getting at the objective, because if they damage the objective too much, you will fail the mission, right? So this is a really good use case in the early game, and I didn't use him as much early game. I was using one of the sort of one of the ninjas that I had sort of bought out of the store with my gold early on, and that served me well. But playing solo especially, having these, having base Kyle in this build or some sort of constructor build, ended up, I wish I could use that more in the early game, because you can pay a little bit less attention to what's happening at the base, because it just has so much health. You don't have to worry about them just breaking through your wall really quickly and getting at the objective. Here I am, we're looking for survivors. As part of the nature of the game, you're always looking for survivors, right? Just going around, and again, you notice I'm sticking to using my melee weapons. I'm conserving my ammo. I'm trying not to waste it unnecessarily. But, you get all sorts of different benefits from rescuing them. You get presents, and you get resources, so you want to just sort of keep through there and doing those pieces as well. Now, as we get in here, you can see that at one point here, I think I do go ahead and look as to where the spawn points are. You can see the purple there on the menu. It flashed up real quick. So I'm just going over here and confirming where the spawn parts are coming from. So all the Husks are going to spawn in there. And so you're looking for ramp options that lead up to the level where the Atlas is. So that's what I'm doing here. I'm going, hey, is there a path on the left-hand side here? And there really isn't, right? Or if they did, they were going to come around here, right? Because again, Husks will generally take the path of least resistance, or the shortest path. So I sort of go, okay, right? They could come up here. I don't want them to. The whole idea with tunneling and funneling the Husks where you want them to be is you're trying to make them come down to sort of a dedicated direction or a channel, right? So that you can build your traps, your tunnels effectively. So I'm basically building these pieces here to sort of go, I don't want them coming anyway except straight through this path here, directly at this wall. And that's where I'm going to place my traps, as you'll see, right, is that I want them to come at that one wall, and I'm going to build a couple of traps there because I don't want to overbuild, right? Especially in early game, your resources are finite, your traps are finite, you don't have a lot of materials to craft them, and you don't have a lot of schematics, so you're sort of working off of what you find. And so you're trying to use it, a little bit sparingly, right? Now, some of the approaches I'm doing here is that using these small walls, right, are really good for controlling where they walk, and you can still place a couple of, you can place the wall zappers, right, or the wall dynamos, I guess we call them, right, can still be placed on those stub walls. So it's it's a good use case for them, and I think I do use a couple of them here in this instance. So again, we've built a wall, right? When they reach those walls, they'll have a tendency to just sort of move towards, right, and beeline for the Atlas. So that's the important part of constructing this piece here, and driving them into essentially a bit of a choke point, where the traps again can do most of the work. Okay, so now the important part here is these, the ceiling electric fields are some of the best traps in the game as far as I'm concerned, right? And there's a couple different approaches here. So, to pause this again a little bit, right? The ceiling electric traps cover an area of 3 tiles, right? 2 tiles high and 3 tiles in area. So they can hit the Husks even before they've reached the tile that it's covering. The zapper that I put on the inside, right, if we sort of back up just a little bit, right, this this trap right here, the zapper, it is only a single use, and I happen to have a gray one, but some of these will go through builds. So in this example, even if they come up to that angled wall and try to start attacking it, the zapper can still attack them through the ramp, right? And there's a couple of weapons that will do that, and we'll get into that deeper when we get into some more trap-based tutorials, right? Same thing, if you have wall darts on a wall, on a ramp, they will shoot through the ramp, right? Same thing if it's a wall with a window open on it, the wall darts will shoot through it. So there's lots of those types of things where you're protecting with the wall, but you're also putting some traps in there that as they go attack the wall, you've got some traps that are damaging them if they make it that far. So essentially, you don't have to do the work for it, right? So we sort of go through. We've got a good layout here, and we can see with those walls that I built off to the side, they are going to have to sort of funnel into those 3 tiles that I've left open on purpose. Now, the other part early in the game, as you can see there, is that as they do things, the base, that's called the base ability, putting that piece on, which makes them stronger. It also generates, as damage goes through and it sits there, it does generate materials, right? So wood, brick, and metal. So you can grab that as well too. So again, I've activated the mission. I used the blue glow to activate it. Now we have a timer, right? Defend the Atlas for 5 minutes. In the fight to store missions, you do a single wave of husks. So you only have to defend it for a single wave here. When you do the Ride the Lightning one, which we'll take a look at here after, that one does 2 waves, right? One wave is sort of lighter and easier, and then the second wave is a little bit more intense. Now, again, this is why I recommend base Kyle, because you can see, right, my builds have a lot of extra health points and armor on them. He's got the ability to drop those little landmines, which is helpful. And then, probably more importantly, using the Rosie turret early game. The point here is that the Rosie turret fires until it's essentially out of sort of a finite set of ammo. So it'll stay here, and you can get in and out of it, and it'll persist as long as there's still ammo in it. It doesn't really despawn over a period of time. So the point here is that as the husks come, you just sort of use the Rosie thing slowly to pick them off over time, right? And then by the time you've gone through this, right, the cooldown on having deployed it might be already over, and then you can just deploy another Rosie again. The point is, this is using the ability. This isn't using my collected ammo, right? You can see in the bottom right, my cooldown on my Rosie only has 38 seconds left, so I can just use my other abilities and my melee weapons. And as well, the other tip, always grab an animal pet, right? Whether it's a warthog or a raptor or a wolf, because they will also attack the husks on your behalf, right? So the strategy really is here, early game, and it goes on into the later games as well too, is, I'm trying not to use my own ammo and just let the traps and the builds do the work, okay? So, sort of fast forward through this as it sort of goes through. As you can see, we just sort of get more and more waves that go through. And essentially, if you can protect the hit points of the Atlas until the end of the mission, that's essentially what the Fight the Storm mission is, right? It sort of rolls through, and that's what it is, right? So you can just see how a little effort it was doing. Now, this is also interesting. We sometimes get these little shield guys that come on. They protect a husk, right, and give them some of the abilities. Sometimes they'll have, I think they call them shielders, right, where they have a shield bubble over them, and they'll protect other husks that are within the little bubble. So sometimes if I am going to use my ammo, right, I just snipe those little guys off so that the husks don't have extra hit point buffs on them, right, and then they're just more likely to get cleaned up by the traps when they run into them. So yeah, this is just the next part of it, or the next couple of minutes, right? We just watch them come through. The traps take care of them, right? When my Rosie refreshes, I place another one, right? You can also clear off the builds just so you've got, you can see what's coming at you easier, and you're just riding it out, right? Defend that Atlas until the timer runs out, and it can fire its signal up into the clouds, and then you have completed your Fight the Storm mission. Okay. Fast forward here a little bit. And as you can see here, start the music comes to play, and again, just rinse and repeat. And you collect a lot of little resources from getting the husks and cleaning them up. And then as we get it completed here, right, you see that we've completed the mission. And there we go, right? The Atlas has fired its mission off. And you can see that it pushes the storm back for a period of time, right? That's what the Atlas is trying to do, right? Just to continue pushing that storm back and to keep the husks at bay. Okay, so that was essentially that mission. So, and then you go through and you pick up your resources, right? You'll get your chests if you've completed any quests, right? You'll get your quest rewards, plus you'll get any mission rewards that you did for the mission. And then we are, back at home base, which is now Hestia in the new piece, because they've added Hestia as the base, which is awesome, and we'll do a video covering that here shortly as well. Okay, so let's switch this up a little bit. And we are going to start for next video and do another one around Ride the Lightning. Okay, so we are back. This is the Ride the Lightning mission. So then again, so this is a power level 3 mission. Let's jump into this one and get cruising along. Again, we're using the base Kyle hero because again, this is protecting an objective, right? So it just makes it easier if you've got base Kyle, because it just gets those extra protective builds. Now the same thing is going to be, the timer on this one is a little different. It starts off, as we'll see when we first get in, it starts off with the timer. You've got so many minutes to find the objective and sort of finish defending the waves until that timer runs out. And again, right, anytime you see those colored animals of any sort, that's the rarity of loot that they will drop. Right? If it's a trap or if it's a weapon, right, you're going to get really good rarity loot from them. So again, anytime you see them, take a look at them. These are those, the mission buffs that you'll see. In this case, this one is the health buff. So if you look at my health, when I activate that, it actually goes up a little bit. I need 2 blue glow, and then look at my health. In the bottom left, it increases, right, by 2,000, right? And so that just only lasts for the purpose of the mission, but again, if your habit is to just be going around and collecting blue glow, you can activate those as you go, and for the mission you just get some extra buff to shields and health and speed, pickaxe strength, these types of things. Okay, so the approach is the same here. We have to find Lars's van. And here, this is another thing to take a look at. These are, if you see, when you pick up blue glow, while it seems a little annoying to sort of kill this little guy to get it, it's always worth it because he gives you a present, which gives you some extra resources, and he gives you 2 blue glow. Right? So for a little bit of investment in time, it's good to always sort of take those guys out. Again, you see my approach. I'm farming as I go. I'm looking for rocks and minerals, and just sort of going through from that perspective. And I'm trying to minimize the use of my ammo as much as possible. Okay, so we'll go through here, right? The approach on this one is sort of the same thing, right? We circle around and circle around until we find the objective. We're searching and farming, and that's just sort of what we're doing as per usual on these types of missions, right? Looking for chests, right? And that's just sort of the rinse and repeat piece of doing this. Now Lars's van is a little different, right? Because it's not a single square like an Atlas. It ends up being a bit of an L shape if you built the walls around it, because you can't build on certain sections of the wall, right? So we're going around. If we find survivors, we rescue them and continue going through them. We grab our blue glow. We just sort of keep working our way through. Okay. So yeah, we're just going to go through until we find that aspect of it here. And because this one does multiple waves, then it gets to be, a little bit more important to build that piece out, right? And I'm working on quest things as I go. So let's just keep skipping forward here a little bit.
When it comes to seeing pirates, he be your butt.
This is good news to you.
We'll skip ahead. We're still looking, right? Collecting more things as we go. And eventually we do find Lars's van, and there it is. Now we can see there's the van. Okay, now we want to build our defenses around it. Again, so the first part here is that you're just going to go around, you're going to clear the area around it so you can build whatever you need to build. If there are husks waiting around, I would just clear them out so that they don't sort of surprise you later when you're, activating the wave attacks. Right, so just sort of clear up the area around the objective. And then I always build a base, a wall around it, right, as we'll take a look at here. So again, I'm just sort of clearing out the area, and then we'll build a basic L-shaped defense around it. Again, get rid of the trees so the stuff is not in your way. You can also use the resources for it. And we're also paying attention to the terrain, right? What are the angles and ramps that lead up to the objective, right? Because we want to start closing them off and choosing one of them, if at all possible, to be the path that we're going to use to funnel the husks up based on where the spawn point is, right? So right now we're going to build our tunnel, or basically our box defense around it. And we can see that there's where the spawns are going to come from, right? So I know where they're going to come from. So we know they're going to come from this direction, which means that ramp I just walked up there is probably the ramp that we're going to focus on to build it. And so now what we can see is I'm starting to build walls, right? See where those spawners are coming from? I don't want them to necessarily go around, right? So I'm just building some basic walls to sort of go, okay, if they hit these walls, they're going to walk along the wall because they're going to try and go towards the van, and then it's going to lead into that ramp that's sort of behind me, and that's going to be our choke point, as you'll see. Right? Same thing here. We build them, right? And we're just making the foundations of at where we can build it. We can put some ceiling, some roof builds in here, and as well as some things on the floor. And we're going to put a little bit of defense together, right? So a little bit of a choke point. That's the whole idea here, right? Now these ones are good here on the walls because we're going to use some wall darts, and wall darts can shoot over 3 tiles, right? They can sense things over 3 tiles. And then we're just building a little bit of a choke point here, right? So that they can't find any way up. They're going to have to walk up this ramp. They're going to get stuck on that box. And as you'll see, we're going to use as many traps as we can to do the work for us, right? So, see the storm there. We know what's coming in. And we're going to build some wall pieces here and some ceiling pieces. And again, I'm mostly focusing on floor spikes to slow them down and do some damage. Retractable spikes, which don't slow them down but do damage. We're going to use some wall darts, which can be triggered several tiles away, as well as the retractable spikes can also be put on the ramp. And then for the roof traps, I'm mostly going to focus on using the electric field, right? The ceiling electric field. One, because they cover of area of effect, right? 3 tiles and 2 high. So those are sort of the best ones to use from that perspective. If you find other traps as you're going through, as you're opening things up, right, certainly feel free to use them, right? But yeah, that's sort of the strategy from my perspective. Right, there's our wall darts. As they sort of round this little corner to go up the ramp, they're just going to get hit by both of those. I messed it up and placed a trap I didn't mean to. So yeah, the idea here is that the wall traps or the wall spikes are there to hit them as they round this corner. We're going to put the spikes to slow them down, right? So as they get in, they're going to get slowed. As they go up the ramp, the retractable spikes are just going to hit them for more and more damage. And then we're going to put those spikes to sort of go, okay, as they approach this. Right, so the idea is that as they approach it, right, you've got as many ranged traps as possible, which are just going to whittle them down for HP. Okay? So, now this is the important part here. From that perspective, I haven't built an entire shield around the van. The first wave, as you can see, only lasts for basically just around 3 minutes, right? So it's a bit of a weak wave, so I'm not that worried about it. If there are lobbers, which we will see later here in the second wave, you can build a piece around it, but in the early missions, right, in an effort to not overbuild, if they're coming up here, they really don't have any way to sort of get at it at the moment. As we'll see later, I can build some taller walls on there to protect it if there are people that are going to do mobs who are going to throw weapons at it. But for now, this is a simple, minimal build that we can use. And again, we're doing the same approach. Put down our base, right? Buffer those bases with more health points and armor. Put down your Rosie turret, right? It does a good job of clearing out the other pieces. And again, we're not using our ammo here. We're using our abilities, and we're using the traps. Right? As you can see, as I come out here afterwards, right, any of the husks that I don't kill with the Rosie turret are just getting mopped up by the traps that are underneath me. The spikes, the zapper, the electric field. It's doing all that work for me. Right? So it's a combination of abilities, your weapons when they need to be used, but traps, right? Abilities and traps to do a lot of the heavy lifting of taking the husks out for you. Okay, so let's fast forward just a little bit, right? We sort of go down through this sort of rinse and repeat. Right, and you can see that just those traps are just doing a lot of great work for me. Boom, right? It's just wiping them out. I'm not wasting my time on using all my ammo to do that. Right, just like in Battle Royale, right? Jerry cans explode, so you can use those to your slight benefit as well. And while, the nice part is while I have the traps doing that work, I can go continue farming, right? I'm still keeping an eye on it, of course. But if you've got a good trap set up, you're sort of free to go do some other things. Maybe go do some other objectives, farm some more materials, right? Okay, so now this is the second wave. We've completed the first one. All right. Now the first is that sometimes the direction of the spawns will change for the second one. So you have to check your map again. As you can see here, now there's spawn points that are over here on the right, which wasn't sort of there before. So again, we're looking for angles. Is there any other way they could potentially sneak around behind, right, and come at the objective another way? And in this case, there's not really, right? They're going to have to come straight on, and the other spawner is right there. So luckily for us, it didn't change directions. If it had, we would have just put some other builds and maybe some traps on the other side, right, in order sort of to deal with that. But in this case, they're still coming from the same side, so rinse and repeat, right? Now we can see the second wave is a little longer. It's 4 minutes. And you'll get more husks. More husks and some more varied ones. Right? So more husks will come, and you'll see a bit more of, like, you'll start to see lobbers and things like that as a bit of a blend of different types of husks. Right? So again, we're using our Rosie, we're using our ability, and we're just going to sort of go through and mop that up. When I check the map there, whenever you see me check the map, you can see the little red dots of where the husks are coming from. I do that to see if you always want to be aware of, and did they find another way around my choke point or my tunnel. Right, so you can see those little red dots on the map. So you can sometimes tell just by looking at the map if some of the husks are finding another path around, and then you can quickly jump over there and put builds in, things like that to sort of close it off. Right, and so again, we're just sort of rinsing and repeating here. Right, use our abilities, let the traps do the work. And we just sort of manage it from this perspective, right? Now here we do start to see some of the lobbers, right? I think we saw some before. You can see them. They're usually the husks that are in the dresses, right? The female husks that are in the dresses, and they throw these sort of flaming skull heads. Sometimes they throw the beehive heads and those types of things. Depends on the map, and sometimes the event zone is what they throw. So at some point here, if I wanted to build some taller walls, right, they can sometimes throw over your builds. So that if they got close enough, they could throw over my little wall there and hit Lars's van, right, which would damage it. So, I think at some point here I do end up putting some tall walls up, just to prevent from that as well too, because they only throw them or lob them so many tiles high, and so you can build some what they call lobber shields, right? In the most basic sense, right? The tall wall that's sort of that they can't throw builds over top of. Okay. So again, sort of rinse and repeat. We're going through, we're mopping it up. right? Letting them, yeah, here's one right here, right? There's a female lobber there, and you can see that they throw those. You can shoot them out of the air as well too, but you can see that those become very problematic later on, especially when you're doing things like endurance missions as well too. But just in general, those are the ones that can start to become really problematic because they, even if you built a little roof over your piece, they can break it. Or if you have a trap tunnel that has ceiling traps on it, they break the tops with those lobbers, and all of a sudden your trap tunnel has gaps in the ceiling where there's no ceiling zappers or electric fields again, and it sort of messes up your tunnel system, right? So yeah, so keep an eye on it. But again, we've done a good job. We got a good choke point here, and you can see here, like I can build these tall walls around Lars's van, right? To sort of go ahead. If they're trying to lob anything over top, right? I've got some additional defenses there that are going to prevent them from sort of easily getting at it. Okay. All right, 20 seconds left. We sort of just wrap this one up, right? We get it all done. It's down to the wire, and like I said, you can just see here that we still have a lot of durability on those traps. When you look at them, so you can see how many uses they are, how many more times they're going to fire, and they never even really came even remotely close to getting to those builds. Right now, again, these are the early missions, but there we go. Lars's van is off. He's got it fueled and ready to go, and he's going to go up and take more samples of the storm. Because we're storyline-wise, really trying to figure out what the storm is, what its effects are, and so that's what these missions are, right? Ride the lightning, get that van up. It can go take samples of the storm and tell us what's going on. So there you go. There's a ride the lightning. So those are the first two core missions, right? Fight the storm, ride the lightning. Some basic builds and approaches for that. Right? The key points to remember are, go around the outside of the map, right? Farm as you go, search things as you go, get as many resources as you can, collect blue glow, right? Do some other pieces around that as well. And then, as you continue to go through that, circle around the outside of the map, try to find where those objectives are, and then build some kind of base, right? Close off angles, try to get them into coming from a certain direction, build a choke point, and use base Kyle. That's the big thing in the early games, right? You're gonna get other heroes as you go, but you get base Kyle as a hero for completing essentially that first mission, and I could just use him, right? That base ability with his particular perk to add 85% more health to the builds is huge in the early game. Even if maybe I'll do a video just to show the difference of before and after putting the base on. The husk can break through the wood ones fairly quickly if you let them, but when they have that base armor and extra HP on it, it takes them a long time to get through it, even when you get some of the bigger husks or the smashers coming. And it just gives you time. That's where you want to use your weapons, right? So if your traps and your builds are getting overwhelmed, then as you go in, then you'll go in with your weapons and help, right? Your shotgun or a good assault rifle or whatever, and help clean things up. So, so that's episode 4. Those are the first 2 missions. Those are some of the primary missions that you're going to use a lot of. We're going to continue going through the different mission types here in the next couple of videos. And the next videos I'm going to start showing are going to be with my brand new account that I've created. It's starting from level 0, just as the same as a lot of you if you're just starting Save the World. And we're going to go over the Hestia map, which they've added now as part, which is brand new in Save the World, and that's just that loading area is now an actual map. So those videos are going to be coming here over the next couple of days, now that it is out and free to play, and there's a bunch of new components to it. I got some videos on there to help you through it, and we'll just keep going through these first Stonewood missions as you go through your first storyline quest in Stonewood. Okay, thanks for watching, and we will see you in the next one.